Thank you for that.
No problem. So Sam, I just want to read a title of a BBC article, just so we can set the scene for people. So the BBC article said, a 4-man team has completed a gruelling 3,000-mile row across the Atlantic, arriving in Antigua after around 52, 53, you can clarify, days at sea. So this is what Sam Webber's here to talk about. Firstly, why?
Well, look, as you've alluded to, I take part in extreme fundraising challenges. They've taken me all over the world, jungle survival in the Amazon, mountain climbing, and the one that eluded me was the ocean row. So I signed up for a team, got a place, and you kind of know what you're preparing for. You know it's going to be grueling. You know the physicality. You know it's going to be brutal. And typically, you're training for a rowing routine, which is 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the entire race. And that's just despite what injuries you might have, whether you've got 20 blisters in your hands, how you're feeling, you're missing your family, you regret doing it, which often comes up. It's called a dark day or a dark moment. But it was absolutely brutal. But the thing you can't train for, and this is the bit that has changed my life, is you can't prepare for the emotional or the psychological trauma strain that you have every single day.
Okay, we'll get on to that in a minute, because I think that's quite a piece that you want to talk about. But explain to people that don't understand what size, how many people, the ability that you have when we're talking about rowing across the Atlantic. I've seen the pictures, but try and describe it for people on what you are actually in. Was it 52 or 53 days?
52 days, 20 hours and 43 minutes.
Okay, so 53. But describe the space. I mean, it's probably a little bit longer than we are apart, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's bigger than a bathtub, okay, but it is an ocean rowing boat. It's about 8 meters long. You've got 2 very, very small cabins, and I'm talking really, really small, so you don't really get to relax in there. You've got all your equipment. You are completely self-supported, so all of your food, all of your safety equipment, all of your medical equipment is housed on there. And so you don't have anywhere to escape. So the team dynamics was a huge, huge part of the success of our crossing and can be the demise of most people's crossings.
Now, I wanted you to explain that because lots of things happened on this journey, including something that I think would scare me, even though I'm a trained lifeguard. I know. You capsized. So, yeah, I know. So run us up to that point quickly and then talk about what happened around capsize.
So we had to start the race 24 hours early because there was a huge weather front coming down through the Atlantic. So that set the exact anxiety bar for everybody. And what you hope, and I don't use hope as a tactic very often, but you hope for a calm water for at least a week to get into the routines, the sleep deprivation, the team dynamics and all that kind of stuff. But we'd had a partial capsize by day 4, and on day 9 at about 3 o'clock in the morning, I just got out onto my second rowing routine of the night. The sea state was 25 to 30 foot high, and it was pitch black.
Sorry, Sam, what's a partial capsize?
When you go 90 degrees, so you don't go the full 300.
Oh, just a little bit then.
Yeah, a little taste.
Okay. Yeah, so with these 1,000,000-foot waves, yeah, carry on.
Yeah, and I just noticed this huge wave. It was just bigger than the rest, so I kind of let go of the oars, got hold of the handrails and braced myself for impact. The boat just moved violently to one side. The noise was really terrifying and deafening. I can't tell you how bad that was. And then it just went silent. And a noise that really will stay with me and resonate with me for the rest of my life, which was this glug, glug, glug. And I kind of knew instantly we were under the water. We were kind of in a 360-degree capsize in the middle of the night. Now, the boat automatically flips up. But the difference was I was no longer in the relative safety of the boat. I'd actually been thrown overboard as well. So now I'm hanging kind of perilously to the side of this boat in huge seas with over 8.5 kilometres of ocean below me. And that's not what you've trained for.
Sorry, 8.5 kilometres below you. Anyone that's scared of dark water, just take that in. Okay.
And so there was no fear at that time because there wasn't enough time. It was just, oh my God. And then obviously the boat was at risk of capsizing again and again because we were beam on or side onto the sea. So we scrambled, back on board to try and stabilise the boat. And then our safety training took over. We deployed our para anchor, which is like a parachute that sits off the bow of the boat, holds about 3 tons of water. And it kind of steered in. And that's when we came together as a team. That's when this automatic 2 years of training kicked in, which I'm really proud of. And then we kind of, the only safe place for us then was to sit inside a cabin that was really only made for one, a push 2, and we've got 4 soaking wet, very, very scared ocean rowers in brutal seas, not knowing what our fate was. And we just decided to wait it out until daylight.
Sounds completely unreal. Were you in shock at that point?
Well, I mean, I thought we were done. I thought this is how people are lost at sea. So in those horrible dark moments in that cabin, because we couldn't sleep, the noise of the waves, the recent trauma that we'd had, being thrown overboard, and that was when something really changed my life forever, because I said goodbye to my family, my wife and my 2 children. Sorry.
What?
And that was really, really tough.
Metaphorically? Or are you actually saying that out loud? Okay.
I thought we were done. I thought we'd bitten off more than we can chew. Yeah. We'd taken on a challenge that was far outside our capabilities, even though we'd trained for 2.5 years and our training was absolutely to the letter. We were done. Mentally, I'm finished.
So true despair then?
Oh, like you wouldn't believe.
Okay. So in my professional work, we do a lot on leadership and team building. So how do you come from absolute despair, saying goodbye to your loved ones, to sitting here today? What was the next step that you took, the 4 of you?
Well, if you think the capsize was bad enough, what happened in the morning when we stepped out on deck just took us to a whole new level of despair, and I don't know, we thought we were done. So if you picture now, we've been in this cabin for 3.5, 4 hours, no sleep, contemplating our mortality. And then as we opened the cabin door, the sea state had softened a bit, but it looked like a tsunami had hit it. It was devastation. And it wasn't until we opened the rear cabin, which is the really most important cabin. It's where the skipper sleeps, but it's where all of our marine electronics are.
Okay.
And it had flooded during the capsize.
Meaning?
As we reeled off the equipment, but it wasn't just flooded with seawater, all of our hydration capsules had also set off, so it was this gloopy, milky stuff. And as the skipper reeled out the amount of equipment that we'd lost, like I say, the capsize bared in no comparison to the amount of equipment. So we snapped 2 carbon fibre oars. The dagger board underneath the boat that stabilises it snapped in half. We'd lost one of our sat phones. The other one was barely charging. We'd lost our charts and our maps. But the most important bit of equipment that we lost was our auto tillers. This is the automatic steering mechanisms. So we were now 500 miles out in the middle of the Atlantic with a near-death experience the night before, with 2,700 miles ahead of us. And I had lost confidence not only in my own ability, but my team's ability to get us out of here. And that is where the real despair came, because I thought, that's it, we're done.
Yeah.
You know, white flag time. We haven't even got the equipment to get us across now.
But interestingly, the BBC title says that you finish in Antigua. So you don't raise the white flag.
And I'm here now.
I mean, we are title in mind. I could question your sanity, but carry on. So how do you bounce back from this? What happens? Why do you not raise the white flag?
The skipper quite simply pointed out that we didn't qualify for a Mayday. We weren't in a life or death situation.
Sorry, this is not a life or death situation.
No, sadly, with maritime law, no. We haven't got a fire on board or a hole in the boat.
Okay.
We haven't got a medical emergency. We didn't even qualify for a pan. So,
what's a pan?
It's one down from a Mayday, and it requires another vessel to maybe reroute and pick us up. Okay,
so team dynamics come in then and bounce back, and I've read about something that you said in an interview about fight back. The team came together and you sort of fought your way back. So tell me about that.
Well, what happened after the announcement from the skipper was the only way we were going to get to Antigua, which at that time ended up 2,700 miles away. We had to improvise on our steering, so we had to tie 2 pieces of rope to the rudder and now steer by hand. Now, when you've been rowing for a number of weeks, you generally have about 20 blisters on your hands, and now you're having to steer with these tight ropes. It wasn't something we'd really practiced for, but it was an improvisation. But there was two of the team that were reacting in a fight or flight syndrome, where they just think they had to react. And there was 2 of us that were broken, done, mentally completely broken. What we trained for 2.5 years, it just disappeared in one night. And then it just came. Leadership doesn't just happen. It's a set of circumstances or a scenario. And what I realised is that we were acting like 4 individuals. We needed to come together as a team. We weren't going to get to Antigua doing stuff. We needed a plan. We were obsessing with this huge challenge, which was 2,700 miles away. And that just broke us because it was just unsurmountable. And we were focused on and obsessing about the equipment that we'd lost. So I suggested that, you know what, let's not try and row today. Let's not even try and row tonight. Let's just get the boat in the best possible position. Let's start functioning as a team. So we all had duties and tasks to do. So my first one was to get some food in us, to get some calories. That's a natural motivator. We then decided that actually our life had been designed by these 2-hour routine, 2 hours on, 2 hours off. So let's see if we can improve our situation in the next 2 hours. And slowly but surely, over the next sort of 12 hours of daylight, we started to get the boat and our team dynamics in a slightly better place. We were still broken. The challenge was still 2,700 miles, but we were now functioning as a team.
So you took control of what you could. You started to work together, went back to basics. Yeah.
So there is a phrase called control the controllables. And it meant nothing to me during our training and our safety briefings. But right there, that and along with the power of why, they were the 2 fundamentals that underpinned my personal bounce back. And also I'd made a commitment back on in Tenerife or La Gomera to all of the families that I would bring their husbands or their partners home safely. So that was just enough to get me out of my dark place. But also I could start seeing the team function as a unit again.
So the next couple of minutes then, tell me the long journey, nearly 3,000 miles, between getting the basics right, becoming a team, taking leadership and arriving in Antigua.
The biggest thing was winning the mind battle. Changing the mindset changed everything. And I think, you know, we'll allude to this maybe later, but leadership is about shrinking the challenge. It's about maybe not being the biggest voice. But I think the difference was when we started the next morning, it started like a fresh day. And although we were still traumatized, we started to function as that team. And I think the most important thing to remember is we started to believe in ourselves. And those words, control the controllables, we couldn't control Mother Nature. We definitely knew that. Okay. And more importantly, we had many, many more challenges. You know, I faced 2 really severe chest infections, which was 1 phone call away from being recovered at sea, which would have been the end of the race.
That would have been the Mayday.
That would have been the Mayday. One of the crew had a hypoglycemic physical and mental breakdown. Now, he was in a psychotic state. This was at the end of 6 weeks. So that really hit hard on our emotional...
White flag? Yeah.
Kind of, but the safety team had never dealt with anything like it. So it was unfolding and it really impacted our ability to row.
Okay. So talk to me about the leadership then and the teamwork. It sounds like we've gone from disaster to disaster to not quite a Mayday to can't find the white flag. Maybe it disappeared. That's what I'm going to come to. Maybe you couldn't find it. But how do you manage to cross the line physically and metaphorically in relation to, if you could say one thing?
When you tell people you're going to row the Atlantic, they naturally think you're going to be training like a crazy man, your muscles from Brussels, and it's all a physical activity. And it isn't. The only thing that got us across that finish line was in here and in here. And that's the bit that I would take throughout any challenges that we faced. So throughout any of the further challenges that we had, we went back to what got us out of this sticky situation. And that can really transfer in any kind of walk of life. Now, you can say that there was a leader at this moment in time and there was resilience and whatever else. But the reality is we reacted to the environment. And when you're out in the middle of the Atlantic, you can't control that environment. It can change in a heartbeat. You know, we had 4 killer whales pop up underneath the boat. One popped its head out next to us and you feel very vulnerable. And when you're in a situation like that, you don't know whether they're going to eat you. You don't know whether they're thinking there's a nice tasty dinner in the middle of the Atlantic. And then when they disappear, you realise how absolutely insignificant you are. But it was the power of why. why did we choose to row? Each one of us had our own story and our reason, and that was really powerful when we had our dark days. And that was a constant reminder. But winning the mind battle, changing our mindset, changed everything. And when we had our dark days and our bad days, which there were many, we reminded ourselves of those key ingredients. So, as we said, we crossed the finish line in 52 days, 20 hours and 43 minutes. Sorry, I'm so precise, but
No, it's fine.
I lived and
It wasn't in
breathed
the
every
title.
single
Sorry.
one of those. But even at the end of that row, the last 35 hours, because one of the rowers had lost his cognitive functions, the three of us couldn't sleep in our normal routine, so we only had 3 hours sleep after 6 weeks at sea. We were absolutely on vapour. We were literally rinsed physically, emotionally and mentally. And even in the last 16 hours, because of the sea state had changed, we just decided to go for it. We saw Antigua, it was 20 miles away, it was in the middle of the night, and even then our compass light failed. And so we used celestial navigation to get us actually across the finish line. So it never gave up, it was relentless.
Just wow. I mean, I think that's incredible. And you were doing this row for charity,
Yeah,
but also your why. So what was your why?
Because I like this kind of stuff. I'd wanted to do the Atlantic Row for years, and nobody in my friendship group or my work group wanted to do it with me.
I can't understand that.
No.
Not one bit. No.
And it cost about 140,000 just to get to the start line. So it's a huge physical, emotional and fundraising 2 years of hell. But we raised £250,000 for our campaign. So, so that on its own, we knew people were following us. You know, there was an app that people could follow, and when we capsized, it disappeared, and everyone panicked and thought we were gone, and my wife ended up in hospital with anxiety. So there was all this emotional sort of thing. These guys are following us. So the power of why sometimes when we allowed ourselves was, we've got a family waiting in Antigua. And we'd written a mission statement 2.5 years ago, which sounds really weak, but it absolutely became the bedrock of our comeback, which was to start as friends, row safely and remain friends. And when we stepped off the boat in English Harbour in Antigua, we would do it as a team of 4. And during that row, it looked decidedly likely that that wasn't going to happen. So that was the true measure of success for me.
So that would be a lead into my last question for you. What were your takeaways? So a mission statement, when I do leadership training and management and team building, what's your mission? What are your values? What's your purpose? So you talked about your mission statement. What are your other takeaways and messages?
So leadership, from my perspective, isn't just a given moment. The skipper is the skipper for a legal entity, but he isn't the leader. And we all agreed with our team dynamic training what the protocol would be. But when you're blindsided by the next challenge or the next storm, you have to react in a natural way. And in the case of after the aftermath of the capsize, it was my turn. Other people had their turns. So leadership, like I say, isn't about the biggest voice. It isn't about, answering all the questions. It's actually being empathetic when somebody's having a bad day, taking on that extra 2-hour row because they can't do it, and just sucking it up. It's being able to take charge of the situation without barking orders. But resilience is the bit that I want to focus on, because people often use the word resilience, I think sometimes maybe a bit too loosely. Resilience for me was getting out of that cabin in the pitch black, in 30-foot seas, when I've got 20 blisters on my hands, my legs and my glutes are aching and burning like hell. I miss my family like you can't believe. I've said goodbye to them a few days earlier. What gets me in that rowing position? And it was making sure that with every row and every oar stroke, we're getting one more step closer to our destination. Not just for me, but I'm bringing my team closer to their families. And that's true resilience. And resilience isn't about the physical training. It's about what's in here. We won the mind battle. And that's what I can take away. So, in life, we will all face storms, whether that be in our health, our wealth, our relationships or our careers. They come along. But I absolutely am living proof that I can use the strategies that we formed in that day 10 after that capsize, and that has stood me in good stead.
There's something that we spoke about today,
Yes.
and I think most people listening to you are going to be dumbfounded at the fact that you're sitting on this stage and have gone through that, and the other three guys, like, what a tremendous achievement to say you rode the Atlantic through such adversity, stuck together as friends, stuck together as teammates, and came out as all leaders. I mean, it's just fascinating and fantastic. But you've got another storm that you're riding now. And I think that this shows again all the stuff that you've learned about resilience and mind over matter, fear as propulsion, initiative to lead, the power of why. So do you want to just leave us on that note if you're happy to share?
Yeah, I'm currently training with my son, who's in the audience today, for my next challenge, which is the world's longest endurance kayak race. It's called the Yukon 1000. And literally last week, I had a diagnosis that's going to require open heart surgery. So it's an enlarged aorta. It's asymptomatic, so the chances are I probably had it on the road, but it came up with a random test for something else. And so I've now had to put that expedition on hold until next year. I look at the open heart surgery as a minor blip. It's a bit of an inconvenience. And in actual fact, in this horrible way of earning, trying to get sponsorship, I'll flip it upside down and use it as a bit of a narrative.
Very sensible, very good marketing.
So when anyone says next year, oh, did you hit any challenges during your training? I'll say, yeah, a little bit of open heart surgery. So you never, ever know when something is going to come along and blindside you. And I did have a few moments, and I spoke to my wife, and she's perfectly happy for the procedure. It is just a procedure, it's not disease. And I'll be making a return to training 3 months afterwards.
Sam Webber, absolutely fascinating. Thank you for talking to me, and what an amazing story.